presents Hancock and Kelly.
Welcome to Hancock and Kelly on your Sunday morning here on Fox 2. On the right is John Hancock.
Good morning, everybody.
And on the left is Michael Kelly.
Morning.
And I'm John Brown. Guys, I want to begin by saying this, okay? The ruse is up. On my phone right here, Bob from Baldwin writes us after last week's show. He writes, "It's obvious that you guys support the deep state due to your criticism of President Trump from time to time." John, no surprise with you since you've been in government since FDR. But I thought it would have been more exciting to be a part of a shadow government. When do I get to learn the secret handshake at some point? I thought you would have let me in on this by now.
Oh, it's too soon, Brown. Too soon.
Too soon. Michael, we should have known with your vacations. The secret meetings with George Soros is really what that was. Do you feel better now that the secret is out there in the open light?
Yep, whatever it takes, brother, whatever it takes.
All right, so now that we have that out there, everybody knows we're in on the secret here. So let's begin with the biggest political story of the week that's about to get even bigger later on tonight, we believe.
At a hastily called White House press conference, President Trump today reacting angrily to suggestions he lied to the American people about coronavirus.
I didn't lie. What I said is we have to be calm. We can't be panicked.
In the new Bob Woodward book, Rage, Woodward says President Trump told him in February that coronavirus was worse than the flu, then told him the following month he was playing down the severity of the virus so as not to cause a panic.
Outwardly, I said it's a very serious problem. And it's always a serious problem. That doesn't mean I'm going to jump up and down in the air and start saying people are going to die, people are going to die. No, I'm not going to do that.
The president also putting the onus back on Woodward, saying if he was so concerned about what the president was saying, why did he wait 6 months to put it in a book rather than reporting on it back in March?
If he thought that was a bad statement, he would have reported it because he thinks that, you don't want to have anybody that is going to suffer medically because of some fact.
1, 2, 3.
Democrats kept up the drumbeat of criticism today. Nancy Pelosi claiming the president's public posture cost American lives.
The president knew. He'd been saying for a long time the whole thing was a hoax. His delayed denial and distortion of what was happening has caused many deaths.
But at the same time Woodward was having his conversations with President Trump, Democrats were also playing down the threat from the virus.
There is no reason to panic.
Come to Chinatown. Here we are. We're, again, careful, safe.
It's not a time to panic about coronavirus, but coronavirus is a serious public health challenge. We don't even think it's going to be as bad as it was in other countries.
For the vast majority of New Yorkers, life is going on pretty normally right now, and we want to encourage that.
The president's response to coronavirus is just one controversial moment in the book. Another, did the president reveal the existence of a top-secret nuclear weapon to Woodward? Woodward quotes the president as saying, "I have built a weapon system that nobody's ever had in this country before. We have stuff you haven't even seen or heard about. We have stuff that Putin and Xi have never heard about before." Woodward also asks the president if people who grew up in white privilege have a responsibility to do more to understand the pain and anger African Americans feel in the wake of police killings.
No, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that at all.
On his way to Michigan late this afternoon, President Trump stopped to talk to the press pool at Joint Base Andrews, where he confirmed that the United States does indeed have nuclear weapon systems that no one knows about, though the president refused to elaborate. At the White House, John Roberts, Fox News.
All right, lot to unpack. That was from John Roberts late in the week. Had all the stories that I think we need to get to. So let's start with this. Let's start with coronavirus and the president downplaying it. Mike, you're up first on that one. Your thoughts on it?
Well, it's just a continuation of the president lying to the American people. We've seen this time and time again. Now he wants to blame Bob Woodward for not coming out before then. He sat down with probably the premier investigative journalist in the country who'd already taken down one president. And his egocentric narcissism made him believe that he was going to be able to woo this man to his side and share these intimate secrets. Now, what's concerning to me is not only was he sitting with a reporter sharing this stuff, we have documentation that this president's been having conversations with Vladimir Putin that aren't being recorded. What else is this president saying and sharing with people? And it's just frustrating to watch people who are supportive of the president continue to come up with excuses and disregard what is a complete neglect of his office and doing primarily what the president should do, which is to keep us safe and informed.
You know, John, now his defense on that says he was doing what a good leader does, not showing panic, trying to handle things behind the scenes while trying to keep the country safe. Is that a valid defense there?
Well, it's a defense. And, you know, the other thing, too, that we shouldn't lose sight on, all of this was going on right around impeachment. And if the president would have come out and said this is the worst virus that has ever hit in the history of the world and it's going to be devastating, he would have been attacked for drawing attention away from impeachment. That's just the way the political ecosystem works. Now, having said that, it was the height of political malpractice to sit down with Bob Woodward 18 times and have 18 conversations. Whoever thought that was a good idea in the White House probably ought to be brushing up the resume, because you just don't do that. If you want to sit down with a guy like Woodward, okay, you sit down with him once, you script it out before you go in, you decide what you're going to say, you decide what message points you want to get through in that interview, you time it tightly, we're going to talk for 10 minutes, and you do it once. That is manageable. That could be supported 18 times. Just, you know, this was never going to end well.
I think an important point for us to remember is every time the president says he's under attack or that this is a political hoax, we haven't had the validity of his own voice. This is the president's own voice. He has said this stuff, and now he's trying to blame the media. He's done this time and time again on everything. People need to wake up. This man is lying to us and does not know how to tell the truth.
You know, and I'll to follow up on that one, John, I'll go to you on this one. Some of the insiders who said why he talked to Woodward, the president kind of felt like it was a coup. Like he felt that he was being wooed by Woodward, and so his ego thought that this was a pretty cool thing to be talking to a guy who's written this much. It was a bit of an ego stroke, and that's why he gave him his cell phone, so they could talk off the record, and that nobody, or not off the record, but nobody else knew that they were talking. And that's where this got dangerous. We'll get to the nuclear stuff here in just a bit. That's why nobody inside the White House knew that they were talking, because he was on his cell phone, no encryption, so they could have these candid conversations. And that's why they had these 18 conversations. But I don't think there's anybody in the White House who would tell the president, you can't talk to him, because I don't think he would listen.
Well, there should have been. You know, Jared and Ivanka, I mean, there could have been and should have been people that would shut that down. Anybody that's done political communications at any level understands that one of the reporters' disarming things that they do, they're trained to do, is they come up along and buddy, hey, how you doing, buddy? What's going on? And they get you relaxed, and then they get you talking, and then they get you quoted, and then they get it published. And I mean, that's just 101 of political communications work. And it was a mistake to do this with Bob Woodward, period, the end.
You know, and I think, Michael, that's where I think Woodward's coming under fire here. A lot of people saying, okay, yes, he was working on a book, but he was also still working for his publisher at that point. If he had something so damaging and damning like this, he should have put that out sooner. Here's your October surprise. Now they say, well, this guy was working to bring the president down.
I'm just not going to buy into the attack the media strategy here. Come on, guys, this is serious stuff. He revealed to an investigative reporter nuclear secrets. He went out there and admitted that what he did was wrong. You're wanting to question the motivations of the reporter? The reporter was writing a book. He compiled a lot of information. We haven't even seen it all. Tonight maybe have more blockbusters in it. And there's nothing from the president calling members of the military suckers and losers to the president denying that he ever said this type of stuff that people will ever believe. It's proven. The man is a liar. It's not the reporter's fault. It's this clown's fault.
Okay, one more thing I want to squeeze in here, John, on this one. I think the president, though, by the way, was in a no-win situation with the first topic we discussed here. If he reacts strongly and says, okay, this is serious, we got to close the borders, he's going to be called a racist, a xenophobe, which Joe Biden had already called him. If you remember that video there, we had Nancy Pelosi posing in Chinatown saying, it's fine, come down here, support these things. So he really couldn't win no matter what he did at that point.
Yeah, and the key is, what preparations were going on behind the scenes. I don't know, but the rhetoric that rhetoric doesn't particularly trouble me. And as to the nuclear thing, I mean, look, it's no secret that the United States is creating weapon systems all the time. Now, would I rather the president not have mentioned something to Bob Woodward? Yeah, but this is, in fact, they've come out now, and the military said it's a likely he was talking about this submarine-based nuclear missile that they've developed, and to think that our adversaries don't have intelligence about what our military's up to, of course they do. And he didn't reveal any military secrets there. He didn't reveal any nuclear secrets there. The reaction to that part of it, no, I wish he hadn't done it, but the reaction to that part of it's been a little bit overhyped, in my opinion.
Okay, got to take a break here. Still to come on Hancock and Kelly, new polling shows what is motivating suburban women these days. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the suburban mom vote for months, and now we know what has their attention, at least for now. We'll break down those numbers. Now it's impacting a lot of races, including those right here in Missouri.